Ukrainian military intelligence special forces eliminated Russian troops who were taking photos in the village of Zelenyi Hai, Donetsk Oblast, to boast about their advance toward Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. Russian troops advancing near the administrative border between Donetsk and Dnipropetrovsk Oblasts faced a swift setback after entering the operational zone of Ukraine's Special Forces Unit Bratstvo, part of the Defense Intelligence's Timur unit. The occupiers found themselves in the zone of responsibility of the Bratstvo special unit within the Timur unit of Ukraine's military intelligence, so their media triumph was short-lived, the HUR stated. Bratstvo warns, appearing with weapons and tricolor flags on our land ends the same way, with destruction, the intelligence officers emphasized. As reported by media, special forces of the main intelligence directorate destroyed Russian military personnel and equipment on the Tendra Spit. Thanks to the efforts of the soldiers of the Department of Active Operations of the Military District of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, the Ukrainian flag flew over the island. The operation took place without any losses on our side, the intelligence officers reported. The successful completion of the task was made possible thanks to the support of partners and donors who joined the Boats for GUR project, which is implemented by the Diana Podolyanchuk Charitable Foundation. According to the spokesman for the Southern Defense Forces, Vladislav Voloshin, the Russians recently conducted a rotation on the Tenderov and Kinban Spits. They replaced the well-known 10th Cossack Reconnaissance and Assault Brigade Don with 2 battalions of their airborne assault troops from the Airborne Assault Brigade. Earlier, on July 16, the military monitoring platform Deep State reported that Russian forces were moving intensively through forested areas, villages, and frontline positions along this sector. According to the report, the entire front line from Oleksivka to Novopil is under constant pressure from Russian troops. The invading army continues to rely heavily on mass infantry assaults, despite suffering heavy losses, in an attempt to break Ukrainian defenses and seize more territory in Donetsk Oblast.
One of the Russian war correspondents, who is closely connected with the northern group of Russian forces, stated that units of the 83rd Airborne Brigade have partially withdrawn from Varachino. Analysts from the Institute for the Study of War have voiced the situation in Sumy region. Z channels write that units of the 234th Airborne Regiment of the Russian Federation are advancing in the Yunakovka area. However, they were disorganized, which gave the Ukrainian armed forces the opportunity to conduct a tactical encirclement of Putin's army. Another Russian military correspondent claims that Putin's army has managed to advance northeast of Myropolye. Russian channels write that Ukrainian forces are conducting daily counterattacks in the Yunakovka area. Z Publics claim that the Russian Defense Ministry has transferred the 1st Battalion and Assault Detachment of the 30th Motorized Rifle Regiment to Sumy region. Initially, these detachments were involved in battles in Luhansk region in the Belovodsk area. The Kremlin is also redistributing personnel from the 1st Battalion to the 2nd and 3rd Battalions. Z bloggers complain about the command, which is conducting exhausting infantry attacks with heavy losses. Of the 2,200 occupiers, only 140 of Putin's soldiers remained in the ranks during such exhausting attacks. Recall, Ukrainian forces have retaken the village of Kindrativka in the Kotin community of Sumy Oblast, a settlement that has been under pressure since Russia opened a new front in the north. In late May 2025, Russian troops launched a cross-border offensive from Kursk into the northern Sumy Oblast. Moscow described the push as an attempt to create a buffer zone, hoping to pull Ukrainian forces away from the eastern and southern fronts. According to Ukrainian and Western estimates, around 50,000 Russian troops are concentrated in Kursk Oblast, just across the border, serving as a staging force for these attacks. Despite weeks of assaults, Russia has been unable to make significant breakthroughs around key villages such as Yunakivka. The analytical outlet Deep State first reported Kindrativka's liberation on the 25th of July. The 225th Separate Assault Battalion has completed the clearing and securing of Kondrativka, Deep State said. In the Lyman direction, Russian forces have found themselves hopelessly stuck, unable to advance despite relentless infantry assaults. The repeated frontal attacks have become disastrously costly, leading to massive casualties at unprecedented rates. In addition, frontline Russian units are starved of supplies, making it impossible to sustain effective combat operations. According to Euromaidan Press media outlet, it is noted that this has forced Russian commanders to order even more desperate attacks, with Russian soldiers being turned into unintentional suicide bombers by essentially carrying explosive vests with them during assaults. In multiple engagements, Ukrainian drone operators have observed Russian soldiers being sent forward, carrying individual mortar rounds to deliver to mortar crews on their way to the front, a desperate measure indicating a total logistical breakdown and highlighting the grim conditions Russian troops face in this sector. Euromaidan Press says, Ukrainian drone operators from the 63rd Mechanized Brigade have become exceptionally proficient at hunting down and neutralizing isolated Russian assault groups at night, with one crew eliminating 23 enemy soldiers in one night. When Russian troops manage to briefly occupy new positions, swift Ukrainian counterattacks and drone bombardments immediately push them back or eliminate them. This cycle of attrition leaves Russian infantry units trapped in a futile loop of unsuccessful and deadly assaults. This extreme frustration has led Russian commanders and soldiers to adopt increasingly desperate and reckless methods. Instead of reconsidering their reckless tactics, the Russian command doubled down on the idea. Soldiers were soon seen wearing specially designed vests meant to carry anti-tank mines, intended as a practical way to carry mines to the front and quickly deploy explosives upon reaching Ukrainian positions, allowing troops to remain armed while carrying the mines, Euromaidan Press says. However, these vests turned into deadly traps, as when these mine-carrying soldiers are hit by Ukrainian fire, their vests detonate, instantly killing the wearer and any comrades nearby. Such distressing examples highlight a deeply troubling trend driven by Russian desperation and logistical failure. The inability to adequately supply their forward deployed troops has created the absurd situation of soldiers advancing while strapped with anti-tank mines, transforming themselves into explosive targets. Euromaidan Press says, such grotesque improvisations underline how disconnected Russian commanders have become from battlefield realities, willing to grasp at even the most dangerous and ill-advised tactics simply to achieve some negligible progress.